At 7 o'clock on a July morning in 1999, young citizens of Tokyo began to gather outside a shop in the Akihabara district. They were here for a chance to meet two of the creators of Lunar, Toshiyuki Kuboka, the artist who designed the Lunar characters and the world they inhabit, and Kei Shigema, writer of the Lunar scenarios. Lunar Eternal Blue is, for me, it was my very first game when it was released for Sega Saturn. The characters are very good. Each heroine of the series is very cute. That's why I like them. The world view and music and illustrations are very pretty. I can see that they didn't skimp on anything when they made it. I can see it in the game. Which scene was the most difficult to create when you were working on each game? Quite a number of people came to see us, and this was the first time for me to have an opportunity to meet in person with the Lunar fans. I believe this was a very valuable opportunity that I was afforded. Even though it was planned rather quickly, there were so many fans that came. In addition, they spoke of Lunar in such enthusiastic terms, so I was very happy with it. I also noticed that there were more girls than boys present, which I did not expect, and that made me feel good. Though I had to get up early to come here, it paid off, and I am really, really happy to have this. This is Lamina that Mr. Kuboka drew for me.
One of the things that really just blows me away is the fact that the US version of Lunar 1 was imported back into Japan by fans in Japan.
Eternal Blue is in the genre of a role-playing game. There are animations in the event scenes, and those animations are very high quality. And the story is also very efficient in terms of appealing to the players. I think Eternal Blue is one of the greatest RPG games to utilize animation that was ever made. This is a game, but this game is a work of entertainment. Therefore, I believe that with a game like Lunar, which was well received in Japan, there is no way that it won't be well received in America.
You know, when everything comes together, you know, the art, the music, the storytelling, the characterization, you know, creates a world that's just magical and it sucks players in. I think that's why Lunar is the hit that it is.
It was very, very popular in Japan when it was released. It's been released in like 4 different versions, both 1 and 2. And then when it came to the US, it has gained momentum with every release. Every release has been more than the one before.
The most enjoyable thing for me as a producer is to recognize that people from all over the world will respond to our games and say, for example, "It was great." Creative people, like me, prefer fan mail to money. This was the maddening project we plowed our lives into that by any means just had to be made. First, when we made Lunar 1, there were some things that were left undone. The creators involved expressed a desire to finish what they had left undone.
And there were a lot of things they wanted to include and wanted to add, but couldn't, either because of time factors or because of the hardware limitations of the Sega CD.
Since I am a producer, I believe I know everything. But many people are involved with the project. Perhaps as many as 100 people are involved. One difference between ourselves and other companies is that everybody who has their own expertise, such as scenario writing, illustration, music, and producing, got together and participated in the creation of the story itself. We talked about the story setting as a sequel to Lunar 1. We actually wrote a plot along those lines. In that plot, the original Lunar 1 characters, who had become older, would do an adventure with the new characters. This created the problem of having too many characters to deal with. So, in the middle of our planning, we changed the story to the present one. The flow of the story is one where the heroine, Lucia, never associated with a human being before. But by encountering Hiro, she experiences human emotions, one by one. So we deal with this rather difficult theme.
At the start of the game, Lucia comes down from the Blue Star. She's basically an alien who happens to speak the language of Lunar. And by the end of the game, she's grown. You've seen her grow into a real person, someone who feels emotion, someone who feels love.
The way that they handled the bath scenes in Lunar 2 was to make a comment on Lucia's growth. The first bath scene is Hiro and Ruby, and then Lucia walks in. And Lucia is completely unassuming. She walks in naked and she's like, well, you know, there is a girl's bath, but I want to take a bath with you. No sexual overtone on her part at all, but she was just completely unaware of, you know, what was going on. But by the second scene where she's bathing in the spring and Hiro walks in on her, the reverse situation, she's embarrassed about her nakedness. When she hears somebody's there, she covers up because she's embarrassed. And it's a great, great commentary on sort of humanity in a very subtle way.
In the Lunar series, we wanted to describe real human-like characters. This applied not only to the main characters, but also to ordinary characters who lived in the town also. We wanted to describe them in real human terms.
You want to play a game and experience characters, and you want to watch them change. That's the core of any good story. So every character in Lunar 2, as with Lunar 1, does change. And by the end of the game, you like what they've become.
These days, there are so many outrageous stories involving people's deaths, etc. But rather than producing that sort of story, I have been pleased to see a story like ours, where a boy tries to rescue a girl. That sort of rather normal story was well received.
A fighting game or a shooting game, those are easy. But to develop a role-playing game, which is the reason why people have stayed away from them for so long, is because it's hard. You have to make characters that people like, and if they don't like it, that's the end of the franchise. There is no sequel.
The thing that is different from movies, novels, animations is that the game players actively interact with the product. Especially in RPG, the player and the main character become united, and that is one of the secrets or keys to make it a most enjoyable experience in the RPG. Regarding our hero in Lunar 2, Hiro, I wanted to make him a little bit more talkative as compared to Lunar 1's hero, Alex. Lunar 1's Alex had some rather transparent characteristics. I wanted Hiro to have a little bit stronger of a personality. In that regard, I believe we succeeded. The storyline for Lunar 2 was also a somewhat more sophisticated type of story. So we tried to make the characters appear in a little more realistic manner. This is the main character in Lunar 2, whose name is Hiro. As an initial setup for this character, he was living in a remote desert area with his grandfather. His character was supposed to be an adventurous one, like a treasure hunter. I wanted this design of Lucia to appear in something that looks like a uniform. Here she is wearing a medallion. With this medallion, I tried to symbolize the relationship between the Earth and the Moon by its design. Since the character will become smaller on the game screen, I try to make sure that each character will have some prominent feature besides the clothing they wear, so we can distinguish the character even if the size is small. The previous animation, Lunar 1, was more for purposes of effect. For example, a huge mysterious castle appears in the script, etc. There were many scenes that had a significant visual impact in Lunar 1. But this time, the animation was more drama-oriented. There were many scenes in Lunar 2 that showed the inner struggle of human beings presented through the images displayed. Japanese animations are done differently from those done in American animation. In American animations, they make the dialogue first and adjust to that dialogue. We call this pre-scoring, matching the dialogue and writing it into a plan that is given to the animators. The drawings are then done to match the dialogue. However, in Japan, animators construct the images, and then, according to those drawings, voice actors will add their part while watching the animation. First, we create the drawing based on the original artistic rendering. We then use the computer to paint the color into the drawing. This is called Paintman. Like this, we paint by hand, many sheets, one by one. As this drawing shows, character itself does not move. When we want to move only hair, if we put hair and character together, we have to make many drawings. And there's also a danger that the character may look a little different. We therefore make hair by itself. When we film it, we put the two together. It will look like the hair is being blown by the wind. The graphic data created on the computer is rendered using Macintosh software. At that time, the background is filled in with a watercolor drawing. The director, Toshiyuki Kuboka, was originally an animator. When he looks for beauty in hand-drawn art or detailed artwork, he turns to watercolor paintings. Subtle variation in shade of color or thickness of paint layer, the subtle accents created by the touch of the brush, these things cannot be done quite well enough with the computer. First, when the camera moves from one end to the other of this overlay, we slide it slightly to give it the 3D effect. The floor here is where the character walks. In front of that, we place this one, and then we place this one on top of that. The screen itself is moved while the character is placed in the center. This produces a pretty good 3D effect. This is the regular method we used here for this type of animation. We scan it with a scanner, and on the computer screen we add various adjustments and effects. After that, we place the character drawing on top of this background. We also adapt 3D CGI for use in these works. This 3D CGI consists of light wave images. Using this, we make a composite that results in two-dimensional images. We can also take a hand-drawn picture and render it in a light wave image. There is a scene where the blue star is captured by the camera as it approaches the Earth, and then at the end, it enters into the tower and captures Lucia. That was something we wanted to do from the time of the Sega CD or Mega CD. At that time, however, technically it was a bit too difficult for us to do. So this time, since we were able to do that scene, we hired a special design expert to help with this scene's effects, and we devoted a lot of time to it. The most difficult scene was at the end. We used the CG there also. A scene of a spectacle was very hard. Since this is a game, the scenario keeps changing throughout the creative process. We therefore have to rewrite the scenario ante cante to match the game. The spectacle scene towards the end was added onto the existing art as if there is a summit with fog around it. And when we reached that point, we discovered another summit yet to be reached. This is Destiny, a battleship built for the land. It has a fin part that allows it to advance, to move forward by moving the fins. The modeling is very complicated, so when we complete one, we will use it for many different scenes. When we first make the original model, it takes a considerable amount of time. However, once made, to actually run the model through its movements does not take that much time. Natural things such as ocean, clouds, smoke, etc. are difficult to create. To make them look real is a challenging task no matter how much experience you have in doing this. Nature is difficult.
Gonzo went nuts with CG stuff, and they really did come into their own, blending that with the traditional hand-drawn animation so that you get this really wonderful mix of 2D and sort of 3D CGI that looks like 2D hand-drawn.
Music accents the playing of the game. Without music, playing the game is so empty and lifeless. Music expresses the emotional climate. There are a lot of pleasures associated with composing music, but at the same time, there is a lot of pain as well. When I started working on these projects, I started to get gray hairs around here. However, I enjoy creating music. Especially matching the music to the animation scenes is enjoyable. Usually, most composers want to use their time composing music for movies or popular songs.